It's time to turn your life-challenging moments into life-changing messages. Welcome to the Power Lift Stories podcast, where we are interviewing women whose stories will leave you lifted up, fired up, and fueled up with hope, courage, and inspiration. We want to thank our sponsor, Powerful Journey, who helps women tell their stories, write their books, and building a profitable brand around both. Join the masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com. That is PHYLLISJENKINS.com. Now here's your host, Phyllis Jenkins.
Hello to our Power Lift Stories community. Welcome back. And I am thrilled to be with you today because we have another amazing story for you. You are going to want to lean in and remain on the edge of your seats today as you hear the story of Jacquese Armstrong, an amazing, beautiful woman with a powerful story. Jacquese, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
I am so delighted to have you here. And I love how I met you. I actually met Jacquese through my sorority sister, who is her aunt, your Aunt Ada. So to Sarah Ada, and I know you're listening, I am thrilled that you introduced us. And I know that the story that comes forth today is going to power lift, just as our name is for the podcast. This story is going to leave you lifted. It's going to leave you with hope. It's going to leave you just fueled with fire today. And so, Jacquese, if you would, just take a few minutes to tell our listeners about you.
Well, as you said, my name is Jacquese, and I want to thank you, first of all, for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
I am a lot of different things. I create self-care and wellness workshops through expressive arts. I write poetry. I write essays. I have 2 poetry books. I have 1 chapbook, Dance of the Shadows, and 1 full-length book, which is Blues Legacy. And I have family. I live in Jackson, Mississippi. I just recently moved here. I've been here almost a year now.
Okay.
Before that, I lived in New Jersey for about 20 years. I have a brother that's still in New Jersey. And that's about it, really.
Well, that's a lot. And at the end of our interview today, I would like for you to share with our listeners how they can purchase the books that you've written. So, but until then, let's jump into our interview. And my first question is, if you could give your story a title, what would that title be and why?
My title would be Keep Going, You Never Know What's Coming Up. I say that because at one point in my life, I was agoraphobic. I didn't want to step a foot outside the door. And I was a young person then. I was barely in my 30s. And my father told me, he said, you can either keep going out and trying to find a job, or you can sit here with me and be my adult child for the rest of your life. Now, my vanity got the best of me, and I just pushed myself, and I just went out, and I've been pushing myself ever since. And I'm thankful that I did that, because there are so many things that I would have missed out on that were unexpected. So keep going is my mantra.
I love that. And let's just take that mantra right on into your life-changing message. If you would go on and share your story with our audience today.
Okay, so I'd like to start my story by sharing a poem with you. So if you could just imagine, it's 1855. You're a fugitive, an enslaved person. You're looking for freedom. You're running. You meet up with Moses, Harriet Tubman, to join the freedom train. It's the middle of the night, and these are her instructions. If you hear the dogs, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. Now it's 2021 and you're Jacquese Armstrong. You've been having mental health challenges all your adult life. Sometimes you feel like a fugitive in your own life. You see a quote by Moses that strikes you, so you pen this poem, Underground Railroad of the Mind. I hear her last instructions, trumpet blaring. Keep going no matter what. But I got hellhounds on my trail. And the blue intrusive rain falls daggers, each drop a deadly reminder. Keep moving. Found a murky freedom-filled river to wash away my scent. Fell in the clay mud dried on my skin, but I keep running. Labyrinth times 100 circles running endless. Closed latch doors, shouts from open windows plague an already worry-soaked mind. The wind is not my friend. I don't concentrate on trees. I follow deep blue black skies, star telling me hope, freedom, tomorrow. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Should I stop today, I'll be eaten alive, so I will walk, run, crawl, because I hear the warning in her staccato voice, pulling my war-torn body. Keep going. The hollow deepness of night don't upset me because I know morning will come. I got nowhere to stay. Keep going. Angular pain and diagonal circumference. Synapses not communicating and the laugh cry thing is strapped on my back. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Her pounding voice echoes a refrain in my timid ears. Rest in the morning when joy comes. Rest in the morning when joy comes. Rest in the morning when joy comes. And then I hear the last skeleton words calling out my head. Keep going. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. I chose to go to University of Tennessee, Knoxville to study chemical engineering after high school at 17. The first year wasn't that challenging. The second year began to be so I began to discipline myself in my studies. I turned 19 in my sophomore year, my second year. In retrospect, that's when the mood swing started. By spring of my junior year, which was my third year, I was in full-blown psychosis, extremely paranoid, and in deep depression. I had moved off campus and into my own apartment. And my father came to see about me because my mother knew something wasn't right. When my dad was there, I told him the guys in the upstairs apartment could read my mind. And he looked at me and said, oh, I guess he didn't really know what to say. I don't remember much about this period in time. My mother told me that I was catatonic, not responsive, for a long period of time. When I got home, my parents took me for a very intensive medical workup, and they found nothing wrong. And then they took me to a psychologist who referred me to a psychiatrist who immediately put me in the hospital, and that's where I spent the entire summer. I'm a miracle person because this psychiatrist, and this was almost 40 years ago, after he had exhausted all his possibilities and I still had not come around, wanted my parents to sign me over into a long-term care facility. But God is gracious.
Yes, he is.
He gave me parents who loved me, and they refused to do so and took me home. It was a year or so before I came around and asked to go back to school. I truly believe that if they would have signed the papers and I would have gone into the long-term facility, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be talking to you. I wouldn't be cognizant enough to talk to you, or I would be dead. There was something else he said to me that gave me an extra push in times of darkness. And I can still remember the menacing blue flecks in his light blue eyes when he said it. You will never finish college. You will never be able to work. At 20, he said this to me. After that, the uphill battle of life ensued. I was in and out of hospitals, even as I was trying to finish college. And I did finish college, but I got a journalism degree. So after 24 years of battling with voices in my head, there was a medication new on the market that was finally something that worked. And I was grateful. I was 44 then. I was ecstatic about the voices being gone, but I was left with paranoia, extreme highs and lows, and the emotional scars from living in a personal hell for 24 years. And that is the short of my adversity story.
Amazing. I started off today letting our Power Lift community know that you definitely are a courageous young woman, and to hear the story and to see how what that doctor said, that word never, how that fueled you to show, to reverse what he said would never happen. And here you are now, an author, a speaker, helping others. And that's what the Power Lift Stories podcast is all about, is reaching out to help others. So Jacquese, what would you say to a woman right now who is battling a mental illness? What would you say to her?
I would say the best thing to do is to find community. I found some community within NAMI. There are other communities like peer communities. Sometimes they're harder to find. Peer communities are good because, and there are some peer communities within NAMI, but peer communities are good because those are the people that know what you're going through, and they can give you insight. They can tell you, well, hey, I've done this, and you know, this works and this doesn't work. It's really, really good to find a peer community. It really is.
That's good. That's good. And what I would like
and
to
keep
do,
your hope alive.
That's right. Keep hope alive. That's what we want to do. And what I will do is get that information from you and put it in our show notes, so that if there is someone that that is wanting to reach out to one of those communities, that they'll be able to do so. I know that as we live through our life challenges, that God speaks to us through our experiences. Would you share briefly how God has shown up and showed out through your experience?
Sure. God has really revealed himself to me many times through my journey, but I'd like to share one particular time that happened about 4 years ago. The last time I was in a hospital of any kind. I say any kind because this was a day hospital, what they call IOP, which is intensive outpatient program. You go and you participate in groups all day. You get an assigned psychiatrist and therapists. You go to this all day and then you go home. And this goes on for about 5 weeks or so. When I came into that program this time, 4 years ago, I was at the end of my rope. I had adjusted my sails so many times to avert storms that they were tattered and torn. I had no plan going forward. There were no dreams, no goals I was going to latch on to. I was just within, without. And even the therapists were surprised because I had come to this facility many times before within the decade and a half to get help. And they even, let me do workshops within their facility. And they knew me well. And they knew that I always had a plan or some type of nuance of what I wanted to do. They were shocked. So on this visit in group therapy, which I detest, I think it's worthless, God showed up. I can't tell you what exactly my peers said that struck me in such a way that the tears just start rolling. It really didn't have anything to do directly with what God, the epiphany God put on my heart. Because all my adult life, I've dealt with agonizing emotional pain. That sometimes you rock yourself in a corner and wail, why pain? Sometimes you want to disconnect your head and throw it in the trash pain. I learned how to deal with this through the course of my life. I learned how to deal with that kind of pain. You just hunker down and you take it. Maybe you take a day with your head under the blankets, or you change cities or surroundings, or you change jobs or strategies, or you change goals. And I'm so adept at this, I write articles and speak about it. It's a 4-step process I call the 4 R's of resilience. By this time, I was over 50. And what I didn't know how to do was live. God showed me in that instant that the very pain I sought to get rid of, I was holding on to because I knew it so well. It was like a toxic relationship, me and my pain. I knew I couldn't let go now once I thought it through. And God knew he had me in his hand because of my vanity again. I'm an intelligent person, right? I can't fall into my own trap twice. But this pandemic brought me to the brink again. I live alone. Need I say more? It seemed my apartment took on the characteristics of my apartment at 20. And I started remembering and trying to go through some of the same things. And the old situational pains came back in a different way. I'm working through them now. I couldn't before, either because I didn't understand enough to find answers, or I was too busy running and hiding from the pain that necessarily followed me. Sometimes God provides answers if you let him, through the people you meet, through sermons, his word, the wind. If you're listening, you can hear him. Shifting back to the group therapy scenario, after I let go, things I had been working on for years started coming to fruition. I got the news that I got a book publisher for my book while I was still in the hospital. I created a job for myself and pitched it. It was a part-time job, but I was still successful nevertheless. I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I could have been, all things considered. But I'm truly grateful that I just am. And I'm ready to fly at a moment's notice. God has been really good. He's been dropping some things in my lap that I just can't imagine. And, you never know what's coming up.
That's wonderful. And I know, Jacquese, that someone was just set free from hearing what you shared. And I love your poems. I I just think that they have such meaning, such depth, and just just excited to see what God is doing and where He's going to continue to take you as you continue to go on this journey with Him. As we prepare to close our interview today, I want to close with you imagining. You started off by asking us to imagine, but I want you to imagine that you just stood on stage in front of a sea of women. That's all you can see are women everywhere. And you stood and you shared your story just as we just heard. And while you were sharing your story, you saw women who were wiping tears. You saw women who were praising God because of what you were sharing, because it touched them. It met them where they were. But now you've finished telling your story. Those women are, first of all, you got an amazing standing ovation. Those women now have turned to walk away, to go back to their vehicles, to go back to their homes. And Jacquese stands on the stage, the curtains are drawn, and you too turn to go away to your vehicle, to return home. What 3 things do you hope that every woman walked away with?
To keep going, to listen. Listen. We have so much noise around us. We have to just kind of pare down sometimes and listen.
Yes.
And be ready to fly, because I am. And I'd like to share another poem to leave you with an inspirational poem.
Please do.
About flying.
Yes.
It's called For Those of Us with Unclipped Wings. I heard tell of an eagle with a wingspan of 8 feet. Maybe that's why some live on mountains, won't fly in flocks. Here in this congested place, our wings never see the fullness of air, simply not enough room. So some forget they can fly. Some listen to those who tell them they can't. Some line up like sneetches to get theirs clipped in designer patterns, unaware that blessings never come the same way twice. Some refuse to be. But you and me, we held out so long, climbing in a frost of winter, bearing the load and burden of those wings, admiring them anyway. Now at the top of a mountain, poised to take flight. Thank you.
Love it. Your poetry just blesses my heart, and I know that it blesses our audience as well. Jacquese, thank you so much for coming on and sharing.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And where can our listeners purchase your books?
The one is out of print, but Blues Legacy you can get on Amazon, or you can get from Wayne State Press.
Okay, great. Well, I will have you give me that information, and that too will be in our show notes so that you can purchase her books and just be blessed as you have been today with Jacquese. So Jacquese Armstrong, thank you again so very much for being here. And as stated before, we look forward to seeing all the places that this eagle is going to soar and fly. So thank you. Thank you. To our listeners, let me just say that if you haven't subscribed yet to the Power Lift Stories podcast, please do so now. And also, we welcome your comments. Each time we interview these courageous, amazing women, we would love to invite you to share your comments with us. Also, for any woman who is listening and you want to become a published author by sharing your story, we are now accepting applications for our volume 2 of our Telling Our Stories anthology. Volume 1 is full, and these women are sharing their stories, and we are so excited. So we have now opened up volume 2. And the good part is your picture will be on the cover of the book, and this anthology will be launched right before Thanksgiving. That's right, November 2021, you will become a published author, and you will join us in our Powerful Journey Women's Conference next year, which is April 29th and 30th. We will introduce all of our new published authors at that conference. So be sure to reach out to me. Until then, we look forward to seeing you next week right here. Jacquese, thank you again so much.
Thank you, Phyllis. It was nice meeting you.
You as well. Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful, blessed day.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. If you are interested in being on the show, go to phyllisjenkins.com. You can also sign up for the Powerful Journey Masterclass or the Speakers Academy at phyllisjenkins.com.